The throne room of the flagship was enormous. It stretched upward for nearly 100 feet, with walls made of dark crystal that caught the light of distant stars and scattered it across the floor in patterns that shifted with every passing moment. The ceiling was so high that clouds sometimes formed there, small wisps of condensation that drifted lazily through the upper reaches of the chamber before dissolving into nothing. The room had been designed for giants. The people stood 12 feet tall on average, with massive wings that could span 30 feet when fully extended. Their scales gleamed like precious gems, and their teeth could bite through the hull of a starship. They had conquered half the galaxy in their time, built an empire that spanned 43 inhabited worlds, and crushed every enemy that had dared to stand against them. But tonight, the throne room was empty except for one figure. Empress sat in her wheelchair near the great viewport that dominated the far wall. The viewport was 50 feet across, a single sheet of transparent alloy that offered an unobstructed view of the stars. She had ordered the lights dimmed hours ago, and now the only illumination came from the distant suns and the soft blue glow of her wheelchair's control panel. She was alone. She was always alone now. The wheelchair was a marvel of engineering, a sophisticated machine that compensated for the damage that had been done to her body. It floated on anti-gravity units that hummed so quietly they were almost silent. Mechanical arms folded neatly against its sides, ready to extend and assist her with tasks that her own arms could no longer reach. Medical monitors built into the chair tracked her vital signs constantly, adjusting medications and treatments as needed. It was the most advanced personal medical device in the Empire. It was also a prison. Look down at her legs, hidden beneath a blanket of deep blue fabric embroidered with silver thread. She could not feel them. She had not been able to feel them for 6 years, not since the accident that had shattered her spine and torn away her wings. The doctors had done what they could, but biology was complex, and some injuries simply could not be healed. She was 847 years old today. By standards, she had barely entered middle age. Her species could live for 3,000 years or more if they were careful, and the royal bloodline tended to live even longer than that. She had centuries stretching out before her, centuries of sitting in this chair, centuries of looking out at stars she could no longer fly among. A small table floated beside her chair, and on it sat a single plate with a small tart. The tart was made from flame berries, a delicacy from The berries had a bright blue color and a taste that was sharp and sweet at the same time. They had been her mate's favorite. Had loved flame berries. He had eaten them every morning with his breakfast, had insisted that the palace kitchens keep them stocked at all times. When they had traveled together to distant worlds, he had always brought a supply with him, packed carefully in temperature-controlled containers to preserve their freshness. Had been dead for 6 years now. Reached out and picked up the tart. She brought it to her snout and inhaled the familiar scent, closing her eyes as memories washed over her. Sitting across from her at the breakfast table, juice from the berries staining his scales. Feeding her bites of tart during their honeymoon cruise through the nebula of singing stars. Laughing at the face she made the first time she tried flame berries, because she had never acquired a taste for them, and he found her expressions amusing. She opened her eyes and took a bite. The taste was exactly as she remembered, sharp and sweet and slightly bitter underneath. She chewed slowly, swallowed, and set the tart back down on the plate. It was not a good tart. She had made it herself, because no one else had thought to prepare anything for her birthday. The palace staff had left a formal message of congratulations, as protocol demanded. The council had sent an official proclamation honoring the occasion of her birth. Various governors and admirals and trade representatives had transmitted their respects through proper channels. None of them had thought to ask what she might want. None of them had thought to visit. None of them had remembered that she was not just the empress, not just a symbol of the hegemony, but a person who might be lonely on her birthday. A holographic display flickered to life beside her, showing the queue of congratulatory messages that had accumulated throughout the day. There were hundreds of them, all properly formatted, all respectfully worded, all completely meaningless. Watched them scroll past without really seeing them. She wondered sometimes if anyone would notice if she simply stopped appearing at official functions, if she retreated entirely into the imperial residence and never came out again. The council ran the empire now, had been running it since the end of the war. The military commanders made their own decisions. The planetary governors handled their own affairs. The Empress was a figurehead, a relic of an older time, trotted out for ceremonies and holidays to remind the people that the ancient traditions still held. No one needed her, no one wanted her, no one even saw her anymore, not really. They saw the crown, the title, the symbol. The person underneath had become invisible. Finished the tart without tasting it. She set the empty plate aside and turned her attention back to the stars. The war had ended 6 years ago. The Collective, a machine intelligence that had swept across the galaxy destroying everything in its path, had finally been defeated. The cost had been staggering. Entire worlds had been burned to ash. Species had been driven to extinction. The hegemony had lost nearly a third of its population, including most of the royal family. Including their 3 children. Including's parents, her siblings, her aunts and uncles and cousins stretching back 12 generations. She was the last of her line now, the last of the dynasty that had ruled the hegemony for 15,000 years. When she died, the throne would pass to a distant branch of the family, people she had never met and did not care to know. The thought should have bothered her, but it did not. She was too tired to care about succession, too empty to worry about the future of a dynasty that had already lost everyone who mattered. The humans had helped them win the war. That was the great irony, the thing that still made certain members of the council grind their teeth in frustration. The mighty hegemony, conquerors of half the galaxy, had needed the help of soft little creatures from a single small planet to defeat the Collective. The humans had stumbled into space 50 years ago, their primitive ships barely capable of faster-than-light travel. They had been weak, fragile, short-lived, and completely unimpressive by any objective measure. The council had debated for months about what to do with them. Some had advocated for conquest. Others had suggested simply ignoring them and hoping they would go away. Had argued for alliance. He had seen something in the humans that others missed. Their creativity, their adaptability, their stubborn refusal to accept defeat even when all logic said they should surrender. He had pushed for a treaty of mutual cooperation, had fought the council for years to make it happen. When the Collective appeared and began its campaign of extermination, his foresight had saved them all. The humans had fought alongside the forces throughout the war. They had died by the millions, sacrificing themselves to buy time, to hold defensive lines, to protect civilians during evacuations. They had invented new weapons, new tactics, new strategies that even the greatest military minds had not considered. They had been brave and foolish and absolutely essential to the victory. And then, when the war was over, they had helped rebuild. Human engineers worked alongside technicians to repair damaged infrastructure. Human doctors treated wounded soldiers regardless of species. Human diplomats helped negotiate the complex treaties that established the post-war order. Some of them had even stayed. The flagship on which lived housed a crew of 10,000, and nearly a fifth of them were now human. They served in every department, from engineering to medical to command. They had become part of the fabric of society in a way that no one had anticipated. Did not interact with them often. She did not interact with anyone often. The imperial residents occupied the upper decks of the flagship, isolated from the rest of the ship by layers of security and protocol. She saw the same few attendants every day, spoke to the same few advisors at official meetings, and otherwise existed in a bubble of silence and solitude. It was better this way, she told herself. She was damaged, broken, useless. She had nothing to offer anyone, nothing to contribute to the functioning of the empire. Her presence at official functions was required by tradition, but beyond that she was irrelevant, a remnant of a past that everyone wanted to forget. The door chime sounded. Turned her head, surprised. No one visited the imperial residence without an appointment, and she had no appointment scheduled for today. Her birthday was officially a day of rest, one of the few times during the year when she was not required to attend meetings or ceremonies or other tedious obligations. She considered ignoring the chime. Whoever it was could come back tomorrow or next week or never. She was not in the mood for company. The chime sounded again. Sighed and pressed the control on her wheelchair that activated the external communication system. "Who is there?" A voice came through the speaker, male and human by the sound of it. "Your Majesty, I apologize for the intrusion. My name is Daniel Grant. I'm a chief engineer assigned to the propulsion systems. I have my daughter with me, and she wanted to give you something." His first instinct was to send him away. The imperial residence was not open to random crew members who wanted to deliver gifts. There were protocols for such things, official channels through which offerings could be submitted and reviewed before being presented to the Empress. This human had bypassed all of them. But something in his voice gave her pause. He sounded nervous, yes, but also determined. And he had mentioned a daughter, a child. "Enter," she said. The door slid open, and two figures stepped into the throne room. The first was a human male, average height for his species, with dark hair that was starting to turn gray at the temples. He wore the blue uniform of the Allied Engineering Corps, the joint human organization that handled technical operations throughout the fleet. His face showed signs of age and weariness, lines around his eyes and mouth that spoke of difficult years. The second figure was a child, a small human female who could not have been more than 5 or 6 years old. She had hair the color of autumn leaves and eyes the color of spring grass. She was holding something in her hands, a piece of paper that had been folded in half. The man stopped a respectful distance from his wheelchair and bowed his head. "Your Majesty, thank you for seeing us. I know this is irregular." "Irregular is one word for it," said. "The penalty for entering the imperial residence without invitation is 3 months of restricted duty. You know this." "I do, Your Majesty." "And yet you came anyway." The man lifted his head and met her eyes. There was fear in his gaze, but there was also something else, something that looked almost like defiance. "Lily wanted to give you a birthday card. I tried to explain why we couldn't just walk up to the imperial residence, but she insisted. She said you might be sad today." Looked at the child, who had not bowed or shown any of the deference that was customary when addressing royalty. The girl was staring at her with open curiosity, no trace of the fear that most humans displayed in the presence of adults. "Your daughter is not afraid of me," observed. "Lily's not afraid of anything," Daniel Grant said. There was a note of pride in his voice, mixed with something that might have been exasperation. "She takes after her mother that way." The child stepped forward before her father could stop her. She walked right up to his wheelchair and held out the folded piece of paper. "I made you a card," she announced. "Daddy said today is your birthday and you might not have anyone to celebrate with. I don't have anyone either except Daddy. My mommy died when I was little, so I made you a card because nobody should be alone on their birthday." Stared at the child. In 847 years of life she had received countless gifts, jewels from the mines of a dozen worlds, works of art from the greatest masters of the age, starships and planets and moons, all presented to her with elaborate ceremony and flowery speeches. None of them had meant anything. They had been obligations, political gestures, attempts to curry favor with the throne. This child was offering her a piece of paper with crayon drawings on it, and somehow, inexplicably, it felt more valuable than all the rest combined. She reached out and took the card from Lily's small hand. She unfolded it carefully, treating it with the same reverence she would have shown a priceless artifact. The drawing was simple, executed with the limited skill of a young child. There was a blue figure in the center that was clearly meant to be a dragon, with wings and a long tail and what appeared to be a crown on its head. Around the dragon were stars, yellow circles with pointed rays extending outward. At the top of the page, written in careful but wobbly letters, were the words "Happy Birthday." Vision blurred. For 6 years she had not cried, not when died, not when she learned about her children, not when the doctors told her she would never walk again, never fly again, never be whole. She had accepted each blow with the composure expected of royalty, had maintained her dignity in public and in private, had refused to show weakness even when she was alone. Now, in the presence of a human engineer and his small daughter, tears rolled down her scaled cheeks and dripped onto the crayon drawing in her hands. "I'm sorry," Daniel Grant said quickly. "If we've upset you, we'll leave immediately. We didn't mean to cause any distress." "No," his voice came out rough, cracking on the single syllable. She cleared her throat and tried again. "No, do not leave, please." Lily was watching her with a concerned expression. "Why are you crying? Don't you like the card? I can make you a different one if you don't like this one." "I like this one very much," she said. "I am crying because I like it. Do humans not cry when they are happy?" "Sometimes," Lily admitted. "Daddy cried when I gave him a Father's Day card. He said he got something in his eye, but I knew he was lying." Daniel Grant's face turned a shade of red that had learned to associate with human embarrassment. "Lily, we don't need to talk about that." "But she asked." She was asking a general question, not requesting specific examples from our family history. Found herself making a sound she had almost forgotten, a low rumbling that started in her chest and worked its way up through her throat. It took her a moment to recognize it as laughter. Daniel Grant and his daughter both stared at her. "Forgive me," she said when the laughter subsided. "I have not laughed in a very long time. I had forgotten what it felt like." She looked down at the card again, at the crude drawing of the dragon with its crown. "Lily, this is the best gift I have received in many years. Thank you." Lily beamed. "You're welcome. Daddy helped me spell birthday, but I did everything else myself." "I can tell. You are very talented." The child accepted the compliment with the easy confidence of someone who had not yet learned to doubt herself. "Daddy says I'm good at art. He put all my pictures on the wall in our quarters. Do you want to see them sometime?" "Lily," Daniel's voice carried a warning note. "The Empress is very busy. We can't just invite her to visit our quarters." "Why not? She's nice. I like her." Watched the exchange with fascination. She had spent centuries surrounded by people who weighed every word, who calculated the political implications of every statement, who never said anything they did not mean to say. This child spoke without filters, expressing whatever thoughts passed through her mind without concern for propriety or consequence. It was refreshing, it was terrifying, it was wonderful. "Your daughter is unusual," she said to Daniel. "That's one way to put it," he agreed. "Most people use words like challenging or exhausting, or why won't she just go to sleep?" Lily had wandered over to the table where the empty plate sat. "What was that? Did you have cake? Was it good? I like cake. Daddy makes me cake for my birthday, but it's always chocolate because that's his favorite kind. I like vanilla better, but he says chocolate is better, so we always have chocolate." "It was a tart made from flame berries," said. "A type of fruit from it was not very good. I am not skilled at baking." "You made your own birthday cake," Lily sounded horrified. "That's sad. Daddy always makes my cake for me, and he sings the birthday song, and we have candles that I blow out and make a wish." She turned to look at with an expression of deep concern. "Did anyone sing you the birthday song?" "No, I have not heard the birthday song in a very long time." Lily looked at her father. Daniel looked back at her. Some silent communication passed between them, the kind of wordless exchange that parents and children sometimes shared. "We could sing it for you," Lily offered. "If you want. Daddy's not a very good singer, but I'm excellent." "That's not exactly accurate," Daniel said. "It's true. Miss Henderson in preschool said I had a beautiful voice." "Miss Henderson said you had an enthusiastic voice. That's different." "Enthusiastic means beautiful. Everyone knows that." Watch them argue with a feeling she could not identify. Something warm was spreading through her chest, pushing back against the cold emptiness that had lived there for so long. She did not know what to call it. She had almost forgotten that such feelings existed. "I would like that," she said. "I would like very much if you would sing the birthday song for me." Lily immediately launched into the song without waiting for her father. Her voice was indeed enthusiastic, loud and slightly off-key, but utterly sincere. Daniel joined in after a moment, his voice quieter and more controlled but no more musical. They sang the entire song through, including the second verse that most people did not bother with, and finished with a grand flourish that involved Lily throwing her arms in the air. "Now you have to make a wish," Lily said. "You're supposed to blow out candles, but we don't have any candles, so you can just close your eyes and make a wish instead. And you can't tell anyone what you wished for or it won't come true." Closed her eyes. For a long moment she could not think of anything to wish for. She had spent so long accepting that her life was over, that nothing would ever change, that she would simply exist in this empty room until death finally came for her. Wishing had seemed pointless, a waste of energy better spent on endurance. But this child was looking at her with expectation shining in her green eyes, waiting for her to participate in this human ritual, believing with all the faith of the young that wishes could actually come true. Made a wish. She did not know if it was possible. She did not know if she deserved it. But she made it anyway because Lily was watching and because something inside her had started to hope again. She opened her eyes. "It is done." "Good, now you'll get your wish as long as you don't tell anyone." Lily climbed up onto the floating table without asking permission and sat cross-legged among the empty dishes. "Can I ask you a question?" "You may." "Why do you live alone? Daddy said you're the Empress, which means you're like a queen. Queens in stories always have lots of people around them. Servants and knights and fancy ladies in pretty dresses. But you're all alone up here. Is it because you're in a wheelchair?" "Lily," Daniel stepped forward and lifted his daughter off the table. "I'm so sorry, Your Majesty. She doesn't understand that some questions are inappropriate." "It is a fair question," said. She found that she did not mind the child's directness. It was honest in a way that she had not encountered in centuries. "I live alone because I have lost my family. My husband died in the war. My children died in the war. My parents and siblings died in the war. I had a very large family once, and now they are all gone." Lily's face crumpled with sympathy. "That's so sad, I'm sorry." "Thank you." "Is that why you didn't have anyone to make you a birthday cake? Because your family all died?" "Yes, that is why." Lily wiggled out of her father's grip and walked back to his wheelchair. Without hesitation, she climbed up into the Empress's lap and wrapped her small arms around his neck. Froze. Physical contact was not common among royalty. She could count on one hand the number of times anyone had touched her since the accident, and most of those had been medical procedures. The sensation of a small, warm body pressed against her scales was shocking, overwhelming, almost painful in its intensity. "Lily," Daniel said, his voice strained, "you can't just climb on the Empress." "It's okay," Lily said, not letting go. "She needs a hug. When I'm sad, Daddy gives me hugs. It makes me feel better, so I'm giving her a hug to make her feel better." His arms moved of their own accord, wrapping around the child and holding her close. Lily was so small, so fragile, so warm. She smelled like soap and something sweet, some human food that could not identify. Her hair was soft against the scales, softer than anything she had touched in years. "You are very kind," whispered Daddy says being kind is the most important thing. He says if you're kind to people, they'll be kind back, and then everyone will be happier. Looked at Daniel Grant over his daughter's head. The human engineer was watching them with an expression she could not read, something complicated that involved surprise and concern, and something else she could not name. Your father sounds like a wise man, she said. He's pretty smart, Lily agreed. He can fix any machine. He fixed our food processor when it broke, and he fixed the lights in our quarters, and he even fixed the big engine one time when it made a scary noise. He's the best fixer on the whole ship. She exaggerates, Daniel said. Do not. You are the best fixer. Commander said so. She said you're worth 10 regular engineers and that she doesn't know what she'd do without you. Daniel's face turned red again. That was a private conversation that you weren't supposed to hear. You should close the door if you don't want me to hear things. Laughed again, the sound coming more easily this time. She is formidable, your daughter. She's something, all right. Lily had settled comfortably in his lap, apparently planning to stay there for the foreseeable future. She was playing with one of the Empress's clawed hands, examining the scales with fascination. Your hands are so pretty. They're all shiny and blue, like jewels. Why are you blue? My family has always been blue. It is a characteristic of our bloodline. Other families have different colors. Some are red, some are green, some are gold. Blue is relatively rare. I wish I was blue. Being pink is boring. You are not entirely pink. Your hair is orange. Your eyes are green. Humans have more variation than you might think. Lily considered this. I guess that's true. Tommy has black hair and brown eyes, and Martinez has yellow hair and blue eyes, and Washington has brown skin and dark eyes. We're all different colors, but we're all humans. She looked up at. Is it the same for dragons, I mean? You may call us dragons if you wish. Many humans do, and we do not mind. We were dragons once before we built starships and flew among the stars. The name honors our ancestors. Thought about the question. And yes, it is similar. We come in many colors, but we are all. Our color does not change who we are. That's good. Colors are just colors. They don't make you better or worse. That is correct. You are wise for your age. Daddy says I'm too smart for my own good. I'm not sure what that means, but it sounds like a compliment. Daniel had relaxed slightly, the tension draining from his shoulders as he watched his daughter interact with the most powerful being in the Empire. It means you ask too many questions and get into too much trouble. Questions are how you learn things. Miss Henderson said so. She said there's no such thing as a stupid question, only stupid people who are afraid to ask. I'm not sure she phrased it quite like that. It's what she meant. Ran her clawed hand gently over Lily's hair, marveling at the texture. Human hair was such a strange thing. Thin filaments that grew from their heads in endless variety. Had scales and occasional ridges, but nothing like this soft, flowing material. May I ask you a question, Lily? Sure. How did you know it was my birthday? The information is not widely publicized. It is not a public holiday. Lily looked at her father. Daniel sighed. She overheard some of the crew talking. I work the late shift sometimes, and she falls asleep in the engineering bay. She hears things. I hear lots of things, Lily confirmed. People forget I'm there because I'm small and quiet. Well, sometimes quiet, when I'm sleeping. And they talk about all kinds of stuff. Last week I heard Commander telling Lieutenant that she thought he was incompetent, which means bad at his job. And I heard Ensign Wright telling Ensign that she had a crush on Chief Petty Officer. And I heard 2 engineers talking about how the Empress was having a birthday, and how no one was doing anything for her because everyone was scared to bother her. Lily has a tendency to repeat everything she hears, Daniel said. It's a work in progress. I see, considered this information. The crew is afraid to bother me. They said you're very important and very busy and that nobody wants to disturb you. They said you've been sad ever since the war ended and that it's better to leave you alone. Lily frowned. But that doesn't make sense to me. When I'm sad, I don't want to be alone. I want Daddy to hold me and tell me stories. Being alone just makes it worse. Did not know how to respond. The child had articulated something that she herself had been unable to acknowledge, a truth she had buried beneath layers of duty and resignation. You are correct, she said finally. Being alone does make it worse. Then why are you alone? Why don't you have people around who make you feel better? Because I do not know how to ask for them. I have been alone for so long that I have forgotten how to be anything else. Lily thought about this for a moment. That's very sad, but you're not alone right now. Me and Daddy are here. Yes, you are. So that's a start. Daddy says every journey begins with a single step, or in your case, a single roll because you have wheels instead of feet. Lily, Daniel looked, you can't say things like that. Why not? It's true. She has wheels. I'm not saying it's bad. I think the chair is cool. It floats and everything. I wish I had a chair that floats. Felt laughter bubbling up again. It is quite all right, Daniel. Your daughter is refreshingly honest. I find it pleasant. That's generous of you, Your Majesty. Most people find her exhausting. I suspect most people are not accustomed to such directness. In my experience, people spend far too much time speaking around topics rather than addressing them directly. Lily does not have that problem. Lily doesn't have a filter between her brain and her mouth, Daniel said. It's part of her charm. What's a filter? Lily asked. It's the thing that makes you think before you speak. Oh, no, I definitely don't have one of those. Smiled. It felt strange on her face, unfamiliar muscles engaging after years of disuse. Will you tell me about yourselves? I find myself curious about the humans who would brave the imperial residence to deliver a birthday card. Daniel hesitated. There's not much to tell, Your Majesty. I doubt that. Everyone has a story. I would like to hear yours. Please, Daddy, Lily said. Tell her the story. You tell good stories. Daniel looked at his daughter, then at the Empress. Something shifted in his expression, a decision being made. All right, but it's not a happy story, Your Majesty. I should warn you about that. I have had enough of happy stories. They ring false to my ears. Tell me the truth, Daniel Grant. I would prefer that to any polished tale. He nodded slowly. Okay, the truth then. He moved to one of the seats near the viewport, a massive chair designed for bodies that made him look like a child sitting on adult furniture. He settled into it awkwardly, finding a position that allowed him to face Lily. I was born on Earth, he began. In a place called Ohio, in a country called the United States. It doesn't exist anymore, not really. The collective destroyed most of the major cities during the war. But when I was growing up, it was a nice place. Green fields, small towns, people who knew each other's names. Lily settled more comfortably in his lap, clearly preparing to listen to a story she had probably heard many times before. I was always good with machines. Even as a kid, I could take things apart and put them back together. My parents couldn't afford to send me to a fancy university, so I joined the military, the Earth Defense Force. They trained me as an engineer, taught me how to work on starships. I was good at it. I got promoted. I got assigned to better and better ships. His eyes grew distant, seeing something that was not in the room. I met Grace when I was 25. She was a teacher. She taught elementary school, worked with kids who had learning difficulties. She was the kindest person I ever met, patient, warm, always seeing the best in everyone. I fell in love with her the first time we talked, and somehow, miraculously, she fell in love with me too. Mommy was beautiful, Lily said. Daddy has pictures. She was beautiful, Daniel agreed. Inside and out. We got married a year after we met. We wanted kids right away, but it took a while. Doctors said there were complications. We almost gave up. And then, 6 years ago, Lily came along. He smiled, the expression soft with memory. She was perfect. This tiny little thing with bright green eyes and a voice that could wake up half the neighborhood. Grace said she had my stubbornness and her curiosity. We were so happy. We had everything we wanted. The smile faded. And then the collective came. Knew the broad outlines of what had happened. The collective had been a machine intelligence, a vast network of automated factories and warships that swept across the galaxy, converting every resource it encountered into more of itself. No one knew where it had come from or why it had started its campaign of destruction. It had simply appeared one day, emerging from the uncharted regions beyond the galactic rim, and begun consuming everything in its path. The hegemony had been the first major power to encounter it. They had lost entire fleets in the initial engagements, had watched helplessly as the collective devoured world after world. It was only the alliance with the humans and several other species that had allowed them to finally mount an effective resistance. I was stationed on the carrier Endurance when the collective hit the Crimson Nebula, Daniel said. We were part of the joint fleet, human and ships fighting together. It was supposed to be a turning point in the war. We had new weapons, new tactics. We were going to show the collective that we could fight back. His hands clenched in his lap. It was a slaughter. The collective had anticipated our tactics. They hit us with everything they had. Ships were dying all around us. I was in engineering, trying to keep life support running, and I could hear the crews screaming on the comms as their sections were breached. The whole ship was coming apart around me. Lily had gone very still in his lap. She knew this part of the story, realized. She had heard it before, but hearing it still affected her. My section got cut off from the escape pods. We were trapped, watching the air slowly run out, knowing that no rescue was coming. We made our peace with dying. And then, out of nowhere, a cruiser pulled alongside us and burned through the hull. They extracted us, pulled us out of what should have been our tomb. He looked at. It was your husband's ship, Emperor's personal cruiser. He had seen our section on the scans and ordered his crew to save us, even though it put his own ship at risk. Afterward, he came to the medical bay where they were treating us. He talked to each of us, asked our names, learned our stories. He told me that he had children too, that the war was worth fighting because it meant our children might live in peace. His breath caught. She could picture it perfectly. Had always been like that, personally involved with everyone around him, unable to treat anyone as insignificant. It was one of the things she had loved most about him. 2 days later, he died in the Battle of the Burning Stars, Daniel said. I found out afterward when the news reached the survivors. The Emperor who saved my life was dead, and I never got the chance to thank him properly. He would not have wanted thanks, said quietly. He would have been embarrassed by it. He always said that saving lives was not something that required gratitude. It was simply what one did. That's what he seemed like. The kind of person who did the right thing because it was right, not because he expected anything in return. Daniel fell silent for a moment, gathering himself. While all this was happening, Grace was on Earth with her parents. Lily was with them. When the collective hit the Western Federation, Grace got Lily to a shelter before the bombs fell. His voice cracked. She didn't make it herself. She died making sure our daughter survived. Lily reached out from his lap and took her father's hand. It was a gesture of comfort, small fingers wrapping around large ones, and found herself moved by the simple tenderness of it. I'm sorry, said. I know those words are inadequate, but I am sorry for your loss. Thank you, Your Majesty. It was a long time ago now, 6 years. The same amount of time you've been without your husband. We've both had to learn how to keep going. Some days are easier than others. Yes, they are. They sat in silence for a while, sharing a moment of understanding that transcended the differences between their species. Loss was loss. Grief was grief. The shape of it did not change based on how many legs you had or whether your skin was scaled or soft. After the war, Daniel continued eventually, I didn't have anywhere to go. Earth was devastated. Grace's parents blamed me for not being there, for not saving her somehow. They couldn't look at Lily without seeing their daughter, and they couldn't look at me at all. The only people who treated me like a person were the crew who had rescued me. They offered to let me stay, to join the Allied Engineering Corps and serve on their ships. "So you stayed," said. "So I stayed. Lily's grown up on starships. She's never lived on a planet. She knows the hum of engines better than the sound of birds, and the stars out of viewport better than a blue sky. It's not the life I imagined for her, but it's a life." "It sounds like a good life," said. "She seems happy." Lily had fallen asleep in his lap, lulled by her father's familiar voice and the warmth of the Empress's body. Her small face was peaceful. All the energy and enthusiasm of earlier faded into the simple rest of a child who felt safe. "She is happy," Daniel said. "As happy as any kid who lost her mother before she could remember her. She doesn't carry the grief the way I do. To her, her mom is just pictures and stories. Someone she knows she loved but can't really remember. I don't know if that's better or worse. Perhaps it is neither. Perhaps it simply is what it is." "Maybe." He looked at his sleeping daughter with an expression of infinite tenderness. "She's the only thing that kept me going after Grace died. Some days I didn't want to get out of bed, didn't want to face another day in a universe that had taken everything from me. But she needed me. She was depending on me. So I got up and I kept going, and eventually it hurt a little less." "Yes," said. "I understand that. The need to continue for others, even when you cannot find a reason to continue for yourself. Do you have that, someone to continue for?" The question hung in the air between them, considered it carefully. "I thought I did not," she admitted. "I thought there was no one left who needed me. The council runs the empire. The admirals command the fleet. The governors manage their worlds. I am a symbol, nothing more. Symbols do not need to keep going. They simply exist." "That sounds lonely." "It is. It is the loneliest thing I have ever experienced, and I have experienced a great deal of loneliness in 847 years." Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that surprised her. "You know, Your Majesty, you're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "I don't know, someone more distant, I suppose, more royal. The other nobles I've encountered have all been very formal, very proper. They don't talk about their feelings or admit to being lonely. They maintain a facade at all times." "I maintained that facade for a very long time," said. "Tonight, with your daughter asleep in my lap and your birthday card in my hand, I find that I cannot maintain it anymore. I am too tired to pretend, Daniel. I am too empty to perform." "Then don't be real, be sad, be lonely. Be whatever you actually are. Lily won't judge you for it. She sees through pretenses anyway. Kids usually do." Look down at the sleeping child. Her scales were warm where Lily's body pressed against them, a warmth that seemed to spread outward, filling spaces that had been cold for years. "Thank you," she said, "for coming tonight, for the card, for the song, for the conversation. I cannot remember the last time anyone spoke to me as you have, as if I were a person rather than a position. You're welcome, and thank you for not having us arrested." The thought did cross my mind. "I figured it would," he smiled. Lily was determined, though. Once she decided you needed a birthday card, nothing was going to stop her. I've learned not to fight her on things like this. She has a way of being right even when she shouldn't be. Children often do. They see things that adults have learned to ignore. The door chimed again and both and Daniel tensed. A voice came through the speaker, crisp and formal. "Your Majesty, this is Security Chief. We have detected unauthorized presence in the Imperial residence. Do you require assistance?" Looked at Daniel. He had gone pale, clearly anticipating the consequences that had been hovering over them since they arrived. "No assistance is required," said. "I have guests. They are welcome." A pause. "Understood, Your Majesty. Should I log them in the official record?" "Yes. Log Chief Engineer Daniel Grant and his daughter Lily as personal guests of the Empress. They are to be given unrestricted access to the Imperial residence until further notice. Another pause, longer this time. Yes, Your Majesty, it will be done. The comm clicked off. Daniel stared at her. Your Majesty, you don't have to do that. We came uninvited. We violated protocol. You don't owe us anything. I know I do not have to. I want to, met his eyes. For the first time in 6 years, I have found something I want. Do not ask me to give it up. What do you want? Company, conversation. Someone who will speak honestly to me. Someone whose child will climb into my lap and tell me that being alone is sad and that my wheelchair is cool and that I should have people around who make me feel better. She paused. I want you to stay, Daniel Grant. Not just tonight. I want you to stay. He stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly he nodded. Okay, he said, we'll stay. Lily stirred in his lap, opening her eyes briefly. Daddy, what's happening? Nothing, sweetheart. Go back to sleep. Are we leaving? No, we're staying. Oh, good. She closed her eyes again. The dragon lady needs us. Held the child closer and looked out at the stars. For the first time in 6 years, she did not feel alone. The birthday wish had come true.